Well, hello everybody out there and welcome to another totally random video. And in today's video, I want to take a closer look at the original Roland SP-404 sampler. Now, many people love this sampler, and this sampler is one of the most unique samplers, and it also has almost kind of like a cult following. But for some reason, people don't really seem to talk about all the problems that you can have or that you can run into with this sampler. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. Yes, you could always go to the Roland website and download the original manual and read the manual to see whether or not this sampler does what you want it to do or what you expect it to do. But let's face it, it's more convenient to just watch a video instead of reading the manual, right? So I want to talk about all the things where I think that you need to know them. I mean, the basic functions or the basic way how you use the sampler should be clear. I mean, there's so many videos about this sampler that I don't need to go over everything in this video, but just a few things that I find interesting, things that, well, sometimes I wish that I would have known before getting this sampler. So let's get into it. And keep in mind that it is possible that some things that I talk about or some things that I complain about in this video may have already been fixed in the SX or in the A version. So it is possible. So yeah, the original Roland SP-404. It comes with RCA line in and line out, MIDI input, headphone output, memory card slot, and built-in microphone, as well as the ability to connect an external microphone. Now, when it comes to the memory card, keep in mind that, that the SP-404, the original one, doesn't use memory SD cards. Instead, it uses CF cards, which stands for compact flash. And the maximum size seems to be 1 gigabyte. But as far as I know, it is supposed to be possible to also use SD cards with the original 404. All you need is a type 1 SD to CF adapter, and then it should work. The size of the SD card doesn't really seem to matter that much for some reason, as long as you still have one partition on this SD card that isn't bigger than 1 gigabyte. So then you can use this partition. I don't know about the compatibility with other SD cards other than the standard ones. So I think there are SD HC or SX or whatever. I don't know about the compatibility with those kinds of SD cards, but standard SD cards should definitely work. Then another thing, the pulsing blue light. Some people might find it annoying, some people might find it beautiful. It is possible to change the settings for this pulsing blue light. All you have to do is hold the tab button and then turn it on and wait until it says LED in the display. Now you can use Control Knob 1 to change the settings. So when you have it to PTN, this means that it's pulsing or that it's flashing in sync with the pattern sequencer. You can also change the speed of the pulse from 9 to 1. Or you can also turn it off completely. So that's up to you. Let's go with 3. I don't know why there isn't an option to have it constantly lit all the time. Maybe they thought nobody would want that. I don't know. So, confirm. So, what else? Yeah, let's talk about the volume, for example. So we have one volume control up here, but the thing that I find a little bit annoying is the fact that this volume control affects the volume for both the line out and the headphone output. So there is no separate volume control for the headphone output, but for some reason we have a separate volume control for the microphone. So for the microphone, no matter if you use the built-in one or an external microphone, you can use the sample edit function. So let's select the microphone. You can select sample edit and then use control knob 3 to change the volume. But you also have a little knob right here where you can also change the volume of the microphone input. So if we already have a separate volume control for the microphone, why don't we have a separate volume control for the headphone output? Because it is possible that there are scenarios where you might want to have a different volume for the line out than for the headphone output, right? Yeah, but apparently that kind of thing doesn't really exist. So what else? Yeah, now let's talk about the samples. As you can see, it is possible to record samples to the internal storage or whatever it uses, flash drive, whatever. But we can also use the external ones. So we have C, D, E, F, and then when you want G, you just push it twice and then it starts flashing. This means that it's now in G, H, I, and J. And now you might think, okay, if I record a sample onto the memory card, did I say SD card? I don't know. But if you record a sample onto the memory card, you might think, okay, I just take out the memory card and plug it into my memory card reader and just copy those samples onto my computer so that I can use them or edit them on my computer. No, that doesn't really work, because everything that you record with the SP-404 is stored in special files that only the SP-404 is capable of reading. I don't know if you call it container files, but apparently those files contain the audio as well as various different settings. So maybe some changes that you did with the sample edit function. Those informations are also stored in those files. So if you want to use those samples or store those samples on your computer, you would have to export those samples. And it sounds a little bit stupid that even samples that are already on the memory card still have to be exported onto the memory card. But you're basically exporting them out of the SP-404 files so that you end up with just the audio file. And it is possible to change what kind of audio file you end up with. I think you can choose between AIF and WAV files. So how do you export those files? Well, all you have to do is you have to push and hold cancel and then push resample, then push resample again. Now all the pads with a sample on are flashing. So the ones where you don't have samples, that apparently don't flash. So now you can select all the samples that you want to export, and then you confirm that with record and it exports them. Yeah, you can also import audio, and it is important to know that when you want to import audio files, that these audio files have to be in, I think, 44.1 kilohertz, something like that. Because if it's something different, is it? No. Yeah, it is kilohertz. Yeah. Because if it has a different kilohertz, then the speed isn't going to be accurate. And the maximum size is, of course, 16-bit. So all you have to do if you want to import audio files, you have to copy them into the root menu of the memory card. Then you insert the memory card, and then you push and hold cancel, push resample, and now instead of resample you have to push record. But now it didn't work because there wasn't an audio file on the memory card. But if there would have been an audio file, then you were able to select the path that you want to import the audio file into, and then confirm with record. And here is already a thing that I find really weird and confusing and annoying sometimes. If you have more than one audio file on your memory card, it's not possible to import just one of them or just a few. No, as soon as there is more than one audio file on the memory card, it automatically imports all of them, as long as you have enough empty paths available. But yeah, it is impossible to select just one of these audio files. You can either select none of them or all of them. So if you want to import just one audio file, then just copy one audio file onto your memory card. Otherwise, you have to import all of them. That is a little bit annoying. So when you record samples, of course, you can select to record them in stereo. If it's not lit, then it's mono. You can also select lo-fi. I don't know why that doesn't work right now. If lo-fi only works, no, it also doesn't work with the microphone. Don't ask me why I can't select lo-fi right now. I mean, I don't even have any audio hooked up. Does it need to detect the quality of the audio so that I can select lo-fi? I don't know why I can't select lo-fi right now. Yeah, but you see where I'm getting at. So you can do that. What else is there to talk about? If you have a sample, you can of course choose to have it as gate, which means that the sample is only active if you hold it. But if you want to play it constantly, you can also use the hold button. So now it holds that button, but it only plays the sample through once. So using the hold button is basically the same as if you play the sample without the gate. Kind of weird, but you can also select loop so that it's looping constantly, and you can also reverse it, you know, typical kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, I think the maximum samples that you can play at the same time is 6, as far as I know, if they are stereo. But yeah, there is a limited amount of samples that you can play at the same time. I think it's 6. And it is possible to rearrange samples, so you can do that if you push and hold delete and then push record. Then you select the pad, and then you select the other pad that you want to move this sample to, and then confirm. with record. It's also possible to move a sample from one pad to an empty pad if you want, but it is impossible to copy a sample, for example. Yeah, it is impossible to copy a sample, and this is something that I know that they have changed on the SX version, but with this one you can't copy a sample. So the only things that you could do is you could maybe use the same sample or import the same sample onto your memory card, but use a different name, even though it's the same sample. So maybe store the same sample with different names onto your memory card and then import them. But if you want to quote-unquote copy a sample that you have already recorded, well, the only thing that you can do is resample. But with resample, there is a problem. Yes, I know I started talking about the effects, but we get to that. Resample is basically just re-recording. But the stupid thing about resample is that it takes just as long as the sample is. So if you have a longer sample, a copy function would have been a little bit faster than just resampling. And also the thing about resampling is maybe you have changed the start and the end point of the sample so that mark is lit. And yeah, if you resample something, it starts resampling as soon as I start to play the sample, but it doesn't automatically stop as soon as the sample stops. So you still have to push record to manually stop the resampling process. And this means that you may have to edit the sample so that you have the correct endpoint in case you have set an endpoint. And talking about the mark function, it is a little bit fiddly, so to say. So if you play a sample, I don't know how long this sample is. So if you play a sample, you can use the mark button to select the start and the end point of the sample that you want. If you only want to set the end point, you have to push and hold the mark button and then start playing the sample and then push mark at the point where you want the end point to be. Yeah, and as you can see, maybe I should make it a little bit darker. Yeah, this way. So as you can see, if I play the sample, mark is now lit. So this means that I've changed something. It doesn't say whether or not I changed the start or the end point, but I know that I changed something. And as long as mark stays lit, this means that this change isn't permanent. So this means that I can always reverse it or change it again. And this is also important to know, because if you export that sample and you have set the endpoint, the file that you get isn't going to have that endpoint. So it exports the entire sample without the start and the end point. So you have the entire sample, not just the small portion that you want. If you want just the small portion, you have to make this change permanent, which you can achieve if you push delete. And because 1 is already my current pad, I would have to push mark and then confirm with delete. So this way it deletes the mark, and it deletes basically, if I have just a small portion, it deletes everything before and after, so that I end up with just the small portion of the sample. But this means that it also is irreversible. And it's always possible to just erase that like that. So now I just erased the mark so that the sample is original again. So yeah, what else? Resampling, that's something. So yeah, I don't know why they decided to do that, that you have to manually stop the resampling process. And when it comes to the sample edit function, that is a little bit tricky. Because yes, it is possible to use Control knob 1 to change the start point and Control knob 2 to change the end point. And even though it says -30 right here, guess how much that really is. This means that this is now 130 milliseconds. So yeah, every time you use the sample edit function and you want to move the start and the end point, the maximum change that I can use, or the maximum amount that I can move the start or the end point, is 130 milliseconds. So if I want to move it further, I have to redo the editing over and over again until I get to the point I want. That is stupid, isn't it? So why couldn't we change the scale so that I can change more than just 130 milliseconds? Yeah, but maybe you should edit those samples on your computer before using them in your SP-404. But yeah, it is a little bit confusing. And you can also change the time and the BPM and all this kind of stuff. So now let's talk about the effects. The first problem is it is impossible to use more than one effect on more than one sample. So you can't have different effects. You can't apply different effects to different samples at the same time. So if I play this sample and I play it in a loop and I want to use pitch on this sample, now I want to use, now this is my current pad, and now I want to use maybe filter on this one. This means that it now deactivated the pitch for this one. Because every time I activate a different effect for a different sample, it deactivates that effect on the other sample. So you can't have more than one sample, more than one effect at the same time, which is kind of stupid, right? So the only way how you can get multiple effects on multiple samples is by resampling every single one of them. So you would have to play the sample, apply the effect, do all the changes that you want, and then resample this sample with the effect applied to it. This is also the only way how you can get multiple effects on the same sample. So you can't even stack effects in real time, because as you can tell, every time I select a different effect, it turns off the other one. So resampling is the only way how you can use multiple samples, multiple effects on multiple samples, or multiple effects on the same sample. Kind of, yeah, inconvenient, so to say. I mean, it is possible to apply one effect to multiple samples or even to all samples at the same time. And this is where things start to get a little bit confusing. And I hope that I don't mess anything up. It all has something to do with the current pad function. So if I push remain, which also acts as the current pad, it shows me that 1 is my current pad. It doesn't really show me which bank I am in, but I can see that when I release that. So 1 is my current pad. So all the changes that I do affect this one pad. So if I am in some kind of an effect, or maybe drive, all the changes that I do will be just on this pad. Also, if I use the sample edit function, it's going to affect, I change the volume, it's only going to affect this pad. So let's say you are in a session, you play different pads. So this shows me which one the current pad is. Now, let's say I want to change something on this pad, but I don't want to stop the sample because every time I push it, I stop or start the sample, right? So if I want to select pad 6 to be my current pad without stopping or restarting the sample, I would have to hold remain and then select the 6. So the sample still plays, but this is now my current pad. But as you can see, if I push remain again, 3 is still lit. Why is 3 still lit? And if I want 1 to be my current pad right now, you can see that 6 also stays lit. Why is that? Well, every time you hold current pad and you select a different pad, you also select the pads that the effect is supposed to be applied to. So if one of these 5 pads is my current pad, I mean, if I have 8 right now, then 8 isn't going to be one of those 5. 8 is going to be the other current pad. So if I start an effect while one of those 5 pads is my current pad, the effect is going to be applied to all 5 pads. And the flashing also tells you how the effect is being applied. So 8 is my current pad right now, but because it's off and just blinking, this means that the effect isn't applied to it. If I push it again, it glows, but it kind of turns off a little bit. So this means that this is my current pad, but the effect is applied to it. So now this is my current pad, but the effect isn't applied to it. Now it is applied to it. And this is already, this gets so freaking messy right now. So first of all, the flashing tells me that this is my current pad and that the effect is applied to it. Now, if I want 6 to be my current pad, yes, it's good that I can select this pad without stopping or stopping the sample. That's good. But if I hold down current pad and I select 6, see what happened right there? I selected this pad, but I also turned off the effect. So even though it is possible with the current pad button to select different pads without starting or stopping the sample, it is impossible to select a different pad without starting or stopping the effect that is applied to this pad. So now if I want 3 to be my current pad, I can select it like that, but that turns off the sample. And if I do it like that, I start or stop the effect. Or, yeah, it's stupid. There is no way to select a pad without changing something. That is annoying. That's incredibly annoying. So yeah, let's say we have this effect applied to all these pads right now. the stupid thing is, yes, I want this effect to be applied to all these effects, but it is possible that you change a setting. That is possible. But the stupid thing is, this change is also being applied to all the selected paths. It's not applied just to the current path. And I don't think, as far as I know, there is no way to change that. There is no setting that the changes that I make only affect the effect on this path and not the other paths. As far as I know, there is no chance. And maybe you want to change the pitch on this path, but you don't want it to change on the other paths, right? So this is a mess. This is a mess. Yeah, it is kind of weird. And also something that I find a little bit annoying and something that needs to get that you have to get used to. Every time after you've turned on the 404, every time you start an effect for the first time, or you use an effect for the first time, the effect always sounds as if all the control knobs are in the center position, even though they aren't. So it is possible that you have the control knobs maybe in this position from something else that you did. Then you start the effect and it's going to sound as if they are all in the center position, because that's kind of like the 0 position, and only if you slightly move them, only then it kind of detects the actual position of that control knob, and then it immediately jumps to this setting. And this could be really incredibly annoying, especially if you have an effect where maybe the control knob 3 controls the volume or the level of this effect. Because you start the effect and it's going to start with medium volume because it thinks that it's on this setting, but because it's all the way to the right, it's basically the maximum. So as soon as I move it, the level is going to jump automatically from the middle all the way to the maximum. And this could scare you if you don't expect that. So if you don't want to get scared, or if you don't want the volume to jump to the maximum, make sure that the control knob 3 is on the right setting before you start the effect, and then go from low to high. So yeah, that is a little bit annoying as well. And you have no way of knowing if the setting is already correct or not, because if you hold current, it doesn't really show me if this setting is already the setting that is applied to the effect or not. So it is, yeah, it is weird. And those are the things that you need to know, that it's impossible to apply multiple effects to multiple paths at the same time. So you have to resample it. You can also not apply multiple effects to one pad, so you have to resample this pad with the effect applied to it. And yeah, it is impossible to select a different pad without either starting or stopping the sample, or starting or stopping the effect. Yeah, it is a little bit weird, that thing. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything right now. Yeah, and by the way, if you want to record something from an external source, usually it starts recording as soon as you push record. But it is possible, if you hold down cancel and push record, you have to use control knob 3, and you can change the volume where it starts the recording. So if you have it set to lowest, it basically just starts recording as soon as it detects some audio. So let's say I want to record something on this one. So if I push record now, then instead of recording, it says ready. And only if it detects audio, it starts recording. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop recording as soon as the audio stops. You know, it's kind of like the same problem that we also have with Resample, that we still have to push record to manually stop it. So you can't import just one audio file. If there are more audio files on your memory card, it automatically imports all of them. No separate volume control for the headphone output. Can't apply multiple effects to multiple pads, can't apply multiple effects to one pad without resampling. And yeah, it is kind of weird, so to say. And by the way, yeah, I know that on the SX version, I don't know if I mentioned this, in the SX version it is possible to copy samples, but on this one it isn't. You have to resample. Yeah, so now I hope this video was helpful, and now I hope that you know whether or not you still want to get the original 404 or if you want to spend more money for the SX or the A version. It's up to you. But I think those are just some kinds of the things that you need to know before getting this sampler. And like I said, I don't know how many of those things they have changed in the other versions, but that's the way it is. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I see you in the next random video. Bye.